What we're doing is we're not celebrating Bronny. We're celebrating LeBron.
Bronny is Jesus Christ. He has the ultimate connection to the man. You know what I'm saying?
Just put the stack on the clock. I am Ray Allen's a shot. I'm going straight to the top.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Sports and the Real Podcast. My name is Mike. For those who don't know me who are new here, welcome in and welcome back for those who are seasoned vets to the podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share and all that good stuff. Appreciate you guys' support as always. You guys know this. For those who have been here before, the purpose of this podcast is, we talk about sports, and I want to talk about sports. I enjoy talking about sports, but really, the sports is like part of the conversation. I want to have this podcast focus a lot more than I've been doing on some real conversations to help people improve their lives, improve their relationships, improve their financial status, their mental health, their physical health, whatever it is. We've had guests before. We talked about mental health. We talked about nutrition. But today I want to have a conversation with one of my guys. We go back a ways. Fred Bussey. I'll just give you intro as I know it. Author. His book, Breaking Orbit, which came out, when was this?
2019.
2019, so right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Entrepreneur, one of the guys who, I talk to about entrepreneurship, gives good advice. I wrote here he's a LeBron hater. All right? Ultimate LeBron, probably the number 2 LeBron hater in the world after you guys know who. All right? And a church league teammate of mine. Were you on the team that won the championship? Yeah. So we won a championship together. And the funny thing about that league is, like, teams used to stack up, recruit guys who played overseas and all that stuff. And we just had random guys who went to the church.
Yep. It really was a church team.
It was a church team, and other teams were recruiting dudes that played overseas. And we won a championship. So we are church league champs. But really a good dude. Whenever I spoke with him, in the past, COVID kind of disconnected us. But, good advice on entrepreneurship and motivation and things like that. So I wanted to have Fred on because I know, the kind of motivation he provides to me and the kind of advice he provides to me on entrepreneurship and moving forward, doing better for yourself outside of what a traditional 9-to-5 may give you and finding your calling. So I wanted to have him on to share his expertise, and hopefully this ain't a one and done thing. This ain't a one-time thing. So we'll see how it goes. But no, seriously though, glad to have you on, Fred. I can't wait to have this conversation, man.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, man. You've had like 12 kids since the last time I saw you. So it's good to kind of see all the growth, man. Good to see you and the wife, Joanne. You guys are doing your thing. I'm proud of you. And I'm just glad to be a guest.
Yeah, you say that. I remember back when we were playing on a church league, like, I don't think any of us really had kids at the time. I might have had one at the time, Preston.
Yeah.
And listen, man, I'm not going to sit here and tell people, not to have families, all right? But I'm going to tell y'all right now, it's much easier to move around when you don't have a family, especially not 5.
Hey, I don't know. I saw the Suburban in the driveway, and I understand you knew every inch of that thing.
Every single inch. Dude, when we go out of town, the thing is packed like front to back. It's ridiculous. But no, man, when we were playing church league basketball, like, whenever the game, like, we were there. Now it's like we kind of broke up because dudes started having families, man. So
yeah,
have families, but it can hold you back. I'm just telling y'all right now.
Hey, it's gonna affect your ball game. Ball is life, and then it's not.
Ball is no longer life. Ball is no longer life. Appreciate you coming on, bro. Let's get right into it, dog, because and I've been having this conversation by myself for a while, so I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
And this conversation actually, like, I don't have many viral video clips on social media, but my first time going viral was approximately this time last year, was around the topic of the NBA and the changing of demographics in the NBA.
Right.
The NBA is turning from a street ball, to use the word, hood playground league. It's more bougie now.
Definitely.
And the people that are coming in, it's kids of former players, former athletes, kids of privilege, we'll call them, right? Nepo babies. Some people use that term or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And as a result, I made the case that the NBA and specifically American basketball players are falling behind in the world because the hunger is no longer there. For whatever reason, right? Obviously, right? If you're trying to get out the hood, right? Your hunger and drive for playing basketball is going to be different than the guy who's got it made, who's really playing basketball because his parents could put him in some kind of camp and he's good at it, but it's not his passion or whatever, right?
Right. Right.
And that video went viral, and people were like, "You don't know what you're talking about." You know, a lot of people were like, "Man, you know, the U.S. is still the best in the world of basketball." And my thinking is like, yeah, it is currently.
Right.
That doesn't mean it's going to be in the future. It's going to, and the change like that takes time to happen. And the reason why I bring that up because two things happened just in the last couple of weeks that I think kind of stamps that point of view. One, the NBA draft happens a couple of weeks ago, and the first two picks, the draft was not good, right? This is not going to be your all-time great draft, I don't think, right?
Right. Right.
The first two picks are out of France. 3 of the first 6 picks are international dudes from France.
Yep.
Secondly, you watch soccer?
A little.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Euro Cup is on right now. Copa America is on right now.
Right.
And the U.S., you know, doesn't do well in Copa America. And, of course, the chatter online is the U.S., you know, for so long we've been telling folks that the U.S. is going to be better in soccer. It's not better in soccer. And the reason it's not better in soccer is because soccer is gate-kept by suburban moms and suburbanites. And soccer is not available to the hood. It's not available to the streets. And I'm sitting there thinking, basketball is headed the same route, bro. So in 10 to 15 years probably, I feel like we're going to be having the same conversation about basketball, American basketball. Like, what happened? Why has the rest of the world passed us? Why is Luka the best player in the league or the Joker the best player in the league? Why are there no more best player in the league coming from America?
Yeah.
You may have a once-in-a-lifetime generation, you know, like Anthony Edwards, because of his athletic ability. But I feel like we are falling behind in basketball. And part of it is because we've taken the soccer route and we've privatized the game of basketball so that you got to play AAU, you got to play travel ball. It's no longer a street game. It's no longer a playground game. And regular kids like us, when we were growing up, we don't have access to basketball anymore to learn the game. You got to get a trainer now. So it prices out everybody.
Yeah.
And the best talent is not always going to be who gets to make it into the NBA.
Absolutely.
So I've been having this conversation. I've had it a couple of times on this podcast. Want to have it with you to get your thoughts on that.
I completely agree. Part of the reason why this is happening is because, like we were talking just before we came live, and we're talking about the fact that the NBA just agreed in terms to an 11-year, $76 billion media rights deal, right? So that means that the players' share of the revenue, of course, goes up. We're going to see some astronomical. We're going to see $500 million, $600 million deals over the life of. So these kids are. I mean, and what's crazy is this is actually just starting to comp with European football money, right? So you got players that are making $80 million a year, et cetera. You're going to see that with the NBA. And so because of that, anytime you get that sort of money that's out there, you get the motivation for everybody around it, swirling around it, to be more involved. So this is why you get these AAU teams and you've got a lot of former NBA players who have AAU teams, and they're nurturing that talent. Some of them are taking some of these kids from the street or whatever and giving them the resources. But by and large, like you said, they're getting private trainers. They're working out, so they're spending $500, $1,000, $2,000 a month on these trainers to train their kids. And what we're seeing, though, is that you're not necessarily seeing better basketball players. You're seeing more skilled players, but they don't necessarily know the game for two reasons. One, they train by themselves, and then when they play on the AAU teams, they don't practice. So you don't know all they know how to do is score. Nobody knows how to play defense. Nobody knows how to play team defense. And the best players are one and dones, right? So you see these 4-year players that go to college, but they're not necessarily going to be high draft picks. So they're going to be your lower first round, second round picks. They're going to go to the G League, et cetera, et cetera. So you're seeing that dilution of the talent, and it's all, to me, predicated on the basis of there's so much money that's there now. You've got everybody trying to get a piece. So if you're a guy who didn't make it to the league, but you were able to play overseas, or you're a college basketball player at any level, D3, whatever, you can put together a decent Instagram page and show some great moves and things like that. You can get a roster of kids and start to be able to kind of train and do your thing that way. Agents, all those different things that are swirling around. So I think to that point, and the other part of it about the European players and things like that, because we're seeing this, not just the privatization, but the bourgeoisization of the game of basketball. You don't just drive through the hood and see a park where there are guys that are just hooping.
Dudes.
No,
that doesn't exist no more.
It doesn't exist anymore. And by and large, if you don't live in a city where there are gyms where people can play, kids can play, there's just nowhere for these kids to really learn the game. Put that in fact with, you got single parent homes where a lot of these kids, they come home, they're playing video games. A lot more guys.
2-parent homes.
That part too. Yeah. So you got homes where kids by and large are a lot less active than they were. So some of them don't even pick up the ball until much, much later if they ever decide they want to play. So when the European kids are picking this game up, you see them like a Luka. Luka was playing professional basketball since he was 13, 14 years old. So he's 26 now. So he's been playing basketball for half of his life. He's got way more experience. He's been playing against grown men, something that even when he came into the league as a rookie, he was playing like a veteran because he had that level of experience. And our kids aren't getting that. We're seeing kids who come in and they're drafted number 1 in the league, and they may have been playing basketball for 2 or 3 years, maybe. Team basketball.
Right.
So their skill set is lower. They have great athleticism. They have instincts, but they don't actually know what they're doing. And so we're seeing that's why most of our biggest stars in the league are still players who've been here for 14, 15 years. Steph, LeBron, you've got players like that who can still hold that top rank because these other younger stars are just now learning how to play. They're stepping into their own. But even then, with a lot of those, right, you're seeing like a Shai Gilgeous who is from Canada. Luka is one of the top players in the league. He's from
Slovenia.
Yeah. Then you got Jokic, right? You got Giannis, who's from Greece. So you've got all of these. Even Joel Embiid is really from Africa, right? So went to high school here, but he wasn't born.
Right.
And what you're getting is a lot of these kids now, because Africa is another place where a lot of this talent is starting to emerge, and they're getting transplanted here so they can go to school in high schools and things like that. And again, prep schools, not public schools. So they're getting these scholarships, but the resources to be able to attend a school like Anthony Edwards went to Holy Spirit Prep here in Atlanta. That school is $25,000 a year. So you're talking about $100,000 for a high school, right? And
average poor kid ain't getting that one.
Right. So unless you get a scholarship, and you've got to have the skills and you've got to have those resources, and the younger and younger, they're being trained, right? So you got a kid who's 6, 7 years old who's got a trainer, right, working out I used to joke with guys because I said, man, imagine if we'd had YouTube for all the different moves you could learn and things you could do. You know, we had
Right.
I had to actually watch
Imagine,
the
Nate.
game,
You watch Jordan do something, you went outside and imitate it.
imitate it. You practice it over and over and over again.
And you couldn't record it most of the time, so you had to remember the move that he did. Now on YouTube, you can keep rewinding and see exactly, the hezzy and all that, man.
You can record yourself, so you can record your own practice session. You know, so unless your dad had a video cam,
VHS.
right. So I mean, it's a different world, and I think that ultimately people will have to adapt. It's interesting because the NFL is now probably going to remain the bastion of American sports, because you look at baseball. Baseball is
gone. Baseball is gone.
Yeah,
it ain't ours no more.
right. It's 80% Latino. Right. So
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Controversial. I don't want to get you in trouble. I did another episode right on this because a lot of people talk about like we said, the NBA is becoming the Europeans are taking over the NBA, right? Coaches say that all the time. Media people say Europeans are taking over the NBA, and I'm like, so I made a whole episode dedicated to why Euros are taking over the NBA, and one of the reasons why. So I talked about AAU, right, and the fact that poor kids no longer have access, they're being gatekept. The best American athletes aren't playing no more. I talked about all that. The fact that European players, they get trained properly, they got better coaching. I talked about all that. But honestly, man, if I'm in my heart of hearts, I felt like the NBA has turned its back on American basketball players and has made a conscious decision to globalize and expand, and made a conscious decision to bring in a non-American audience for more money. Obviously, it's capitalism.
right.
And they turn their back on the growth of American players, meaning if you own a company, you've been recruiting at this college for years and years and years. And this college, you notice that this college, the product is not as good anymore, right? If you want to keep your relationship with that college, you're going to say, hey, dean, administrator, something's up, let's talk about, your coursework, modernize your coursework, whatever it is, right? To make sure the students coming out of your school, we still love them, we still want them, so that they're prepared to meet our needs. The NBA could have been like, yo, AAU, y'all not cutting it. Like travel ball, y'all not cutting it. Our kids aren't coming in with the proper training. Like their knees are falling off because they're playing too many dang games. Like whatever it is, it seems like the NBA said, forget that. We can always count on the American players, right, and the American audience as long as we have a few American stars.
Right.
But we're going to go after a non-American audience. So we're going to go after the Lucas and the Jokers, even though he was a late second-round pick, like all of these guys, and make sure these guys, come in and are successful. We're going to change the rules. Some people say the NBA, didn't change. The NBA changed the rules to make it less physical so European dudes can have a much greater chance of success, right?
Right.
That's clear, and it happened if you watch the NBA. But anyway, I felt like the NBA made a conscious decision, like Major League Baseball made a conscious decision to go after Latinos instead of, black kids, right? What happened to the next Barry Bonds and the next Ken Griffey, like the next Frank Thomas? Like these were all black stars in the game, and they're few and far between now in the majors. I feel like the same thing's going to happen in basketball. Where it's just going to be a different demographic 10, 15 years. Like right now, right? The Olympics are coming up. We had to get the old, you talk about old dudes, right? We got to get the old Avengers together with Bron and KD and Steph and all these guys to come, beat the world.
Right.
Like, I don't know if you can. I don't think I can put together a team of 10 NBA players who aren't, say, 10 years and above over in the league, right? 10-year vet. So let's say 9 or less years in the NBA. I don't think I could put together a squad where I'm confident of all American players, that I'm confident that these dudes are going to go to the Olympics and win the gold. Like I can guarantee that, right? You can guarantee that with Bron and this team now, the Avengers, and it's kind of like the last stand, right? I feel like for American basketball. Because once these guys go, I'm like, who right now would you say you're going to put together a team of NBA players and you're guaranteed to win gold medal?
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. If I'm looking at even the guys who are on the team right now, the best players that are, like you said, 9, 10 years or younger, experience in the league. We're talking about Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Does that team led by Jason Tatum, Devin Booker, does that instill fear?
I don't think so. I don't
Because-
think that team scares the world like that.
No, I don't disagree. I think Canada, if you look at Canada, they've got a great crop of players on their team, right? Canada's going to be competitive, and they're only going to get more competitive. Let me touch on your point about baseball and how it relates to the NBA. The thing about baseball is inherently a very expensive sport to play.
Correct.
Right? So first of all, you got to have 9 people to play on one team. So you need 18 guys to play, or 18 girls to play baseball.
Right.
So you need a lot of players who are interested in the game and love the game. The game lost a lot of its luster. So that summer with Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire were hitting, that was probably the height of the hype for the game itself. But it had been losing the luster for years because you didn't have those stars, because it was not accessible for a lot of guys who wanted to be able to play. Baseball in and of itself is not exciting to watch.
Nope.
Right? It's a very long game, and because it's a very old game, a lot of the rules and traditions and things, the way that they play, they've tried to speed it up, and they've successfully sped it up. But it's still, there's a lot of inaction. You're waiting for things to happen. And so if a guy gets 2 hits out of 4 hits, that's a decent game, right?
Great game.
That's a great game, right?
Yeah.
So you hit 1 out of 3, you're an all-star.
All-star.
Right. So there's not a lot of action that's happening overall and over time. And I grew up loving baseball. I've forgotten more about baseball than I knew about basketball. I used to read baseball books. I absorbed everything about it, all the details, the intricacies, the nuances. When you understand those things, baseball becomes an interesting game. But to get there, you've got to fall in love with it, and that comes with playing. And then there's a lot of skills that, hitting a baseball is one of the hardest things you can ever do, right? So hitting a baseball, catching a baseball, you're standing in the hot sun waiting for something to happen. It may happen in your direction or not, right? So there's a lot of other intricacies that go into that. So that was one of the things that baseball was struggling with. It's so expensive. Travel ball, you're going for an entire weekend because it's going to take your day. Much like it is with AAU, but AAU is much more exciting for the kids, and they embraced hip hop and the culture because of the way there was always an inner city game. It was naturally acclimated to urban culture, and so the black players naturally gravitate there. Baseball, for all intents and purposes, was always kind of a rural, suburban type of game, right? And so because of that, those are the people that tend to have the resources to be able to support the game, and the ones that still have that love for it. It's a love, baseball is a love that's passed down from family to family. Yep. So you'll hear a lot of people in Boston, Fenway Park, and they'll talk about the fact that they are a Red Sox fan because their dad and their grandfather was a Red Sox fan. And you don't hear about that as much in basketball, but you can fall into love with basketball at a young age because you can find a young player. We see that with Steph, the Steph Curry impact and how he changed the game. He was able to change the game because he made it accessible and desirable. So one kid with a basketball and a hoop can figure out how they can shoot from at the end of the driveway, and now they have dreams of being able to be in the NBA, whether they're undersized or whatever. And so everybody can play basketball. You don't necessarily have to be highly skilled to be able to play it and enjoy it and get the joy of putting the ball through the hoop. And baseball struggles with that. The thing that I think that the NBA struggles with now when it comes to foreign players is that the NCAA used to be that farm system, right? And they created the G League as a kind of a gateway, a bridge to give other players more access, but they can make more money going overseas. And because the NCAA resisted paying their players for so long, there was a backlash, I think, right? So a lot of these kids were like, well, if I can't go pro, I'm going to go overseas, or I'm going to go to these alternate routes, things of that nature. And what we're seeing now is that they're having to figure out a way to embrace that. So they embrace the NCAA tournament, but you don't have the same level of interest from players across the board. And I also think sports in and of itself, because it's not as important to go to play on your high school team. You don't have the best players necessarily playing on those high school teams anymore. So the kids that are in school don't have the same drive to do that. You could literally, unless you're on the internet, you could literally not know who the best players are anymore. Zion Williamson became famous in high school from Instagram and YouTube, right? So people are starting to see that, and now you realize, oh, I can take these alternate routes. I don't have to go to school. But you're also not getting the greatest amount of exposure that way. So you can become internet famous, but the kid who's coming up behind you is watching that on the internet, but he's not watching it live and in person. It's not having the same impact. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
It's not a personal connection anymore, because you're just watching a guy on the internet. Oh, he does nice things. So to your point about baseball being expensive, that's true. Baseball has always been expensive, but I feel like the MLB didn't stop going after the black player.
Oh, absolutely.
They again, I feel like they made it a point, right, to go after the Latino player, whether they're cheaper, I don't know, for whatever reason, right, other reasons, they went that route. So even if it was going to be expensive, the black baseball player, right, should have still been part of the equation. And if it kind of felt like they left them behind. And the NBA, I feel like the NBA is kind of shifting focus, bro. Like, I feel like, so we talked about the money. There's going to be a lot of money being made in the NBA. And I fear that a lot of it is going to be made by European dudes.
Yeah.
American dudes are going to get slowly, like, kept out of all of this money that's going to be available in the NBA pretty soon. So we're going to wake up, to tie this off, we're going to wake up in like 15, 20 years and be like, what the heck happened to American basketball? It's not going to happen overnight. I know people are like, well, the NBA still got the American basketball are still the best basketball players in the world. All true, right? We still got Bron, we still got Steph, we still got KD, right?
Right.
But we're going to wake up one day, those dudes aren't going to be here. And you're thinking, who is next? And right now, I don't know who it is. This draft happened, like I said, the top two players are from France. Like, which American players are we like, this guy is next? Anthony Edwards, obviously, my guy.
Right.
Probably my favorite player in the league right now. But after him, I don't know, man. It's gonna get fewer and fewer and far between, and it sucks to watch. And I just feel like we as Americans have to do better in terms of, we got to change the whole structure, man. Like, I feel like the AAU travel ball thing, like, it needs to be totally done away with and revamped to where we make, like, AAU at one point was good for the game. I don't know if it still is. So we got to revamp the whole thing, because the employees, the college kids that are becoming employees, they're no longer meeting the needs of the market, man. Like, the NBA rather get two mid-average dudes from overseas than to draft some American guys. Like, seriously, like, I know the draft wasn't that great at overall, but the NBA is saying, hey, man, all your hezzies and all this drilling that you're doing and all these things going between your legs and all these fancy things don't matter, bro, is how can you help my team? What role can you play? Can you play team basketball? Do you have the IQ, which you learn by playing, growing up on the park? You pick up those things. You don't pick up those things doing drills, right?
Right.
So the intensity that it takes, all of that stuff is gone, man. And I just feel like American basketball is about to take a backseat to the world, and we're going to wake up one day and be like, damn, what happened to basketball? And it's going to be like, we did the same thing that happened to soccer. It got too expensive, and we priced out the hood. And it's just affluent kids now.
I think one of the things that's happening also in plain sight is the way that the economics are being allocated, right? So you got one or two players who are going to make $300, $400, $500 million on their star salaries, but you're getting a lot of mid-level guys. And yes, the money is going up, but the way that they are constructing these teams now, they're looking for a lot of 3-and-D interchangeable players, right?
Yep.
So can you shoot the three? Can you play defense and slash? Can you run, jump, athletic, or whatever? And you're seeing more and more of those guys have shorter and shorter careers. So you look at somebody
because they're easily replaceable.
They're easily replaceable. And so if you can get a new crop of them every 3 or 4 years, the money that people make is lower and lower, right? So you compress that. It's becoming akin to an NFL career where you might play 2, 3, 4 years, but of course you're making far less money in the NFL. You might make $4, $5, $10 million in the NFL over that time period. Whereas in the NBA, you could make 30, 40, 50, which is great money for the average person. But in terms of the star quality and the appeal, for a lot of guys making all that, working that hard to get there. And then you think about the fact that, like you said, these AAU coaches, you don't need any qualifications to be an AAU coach. You just need to have enough money to be able to sponsor a few kids, have a few relationships, to be able to get them some shoes, maybe a sponsorship here and there. And now you're able to take these guys on these different tournaments and do these different things. But you're not teaching them the game. They're playing 8, 9 games a weekend. You're never practicing. There's no strategy involved. Mm-hmm. And then depending on who's on your team, the 6 through 9, 6 through 10 may never get to play. They're just on the team. So you're not developing in the way that you would develop under a traditional high school basketball program where there is practice, where there is conditioning, where there is coaching and training, as well as working on your individual skill set as well. So I think the NBA does have a challenge. This media deal is going to be huge, yes, but there has to be something. And I think Adam Silver is pretty smart. He's been pretty smart in terms of negotiating and maneuvering things to get the league into this position. I think the next challenge, though, is how does he extend his influence to the other ranks so that these guys get this training and be able to grow it. We're seeing that, due to Caitlin Clark, the WNBA is starting to have more of an impact on the women's side of the game. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe you'll see actually the women start to influence some of how the men are being trained for this. In a strange way, because women get better coaching,
better fundamentals,
better fundamentals overall. 100%. They don't have as many a huge pool of good athletes as the men do. Men tend to be better athletes, but they tend to be poorer coached, and the opportunities there, really everything kind of helps feed each other. You need better players. You need better American players because, by and large, America's still the biggest, most affluent market.
Right.
So you've got to be able to cultivate stars, and they've got to be able to look down their line and say, because you have these kids, and like you said, a lot of them are more middle class. It doesn't mean that they can't have the wider appeal, because I think they actually can. But we're also looking for the characters that have made up those stars. You had Shaquille, you had AI, Kobe, MJ, LeBron. Right, but we're starting to see past Steph, there's a weakening in terms of being able to market these guys.
Star power is gone, man.
Yeah.
Outside of Ant, right? Ant has a personality. He's authentic. Like outside of Ant, like the young American players, like are they appealing like that? Like
no.
Like are they box office? And it's not like, I don't want to make it sound like an old head conversation, right? We're like, well, Jordan was a middle-class guy for all intents and purposes, right? Mm. Kobe, right? But still in all, the NBA, a large majority were dudes who came up through the ranks, and the hunger felt different. You could see it in their game. The passion was different. It just seems like, man, a lot of these guys, they're great basketball players, but the hunger to be great is just not there. So they do it because they're good, not because, this is like, ooh, I'm trying to feed my family here. Like, this is my ticket out.
Right.
And as a result, you don't maximize your talent because you could just be good enough to make $400 million now. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be the best of the best to make $400 million anymore. You could just be average Joe and you're going to get paid a lot of money. And as a result, it just feels, kind of diluted. Our talent is diluted. And I feel like we need leadership somewhere to say, hey, man, we got to step in and fix this because Africa's coming. Mm-hmm. Europe is coming. Like, at some point, rosters are going to be like, 13 non-American dudes and 2 American guys, man, on the bench.
I know we're talking sports, but I mean, you're hitting on a bigger point. I remember I was listening to Klay Thompson talk in an interview. He was talking about, they were comparing, he was talking about how he try to do Steph's workout or whatever once or twice. And he was talking about all the crazy things that Steph does. And how he's dribbling with the ball. He's got these different lights. He's got 2 balls going, a lot of different things, a basketball and a tennis ball, and all the different drills he's doing. And how a lot of guys say the same thing that he said. I ain't doing all that. Like, I just need 1 or 2 dribbles, get my shot off or whatever. But what we're talking about is a level of commitment to excellence. The reason why Kobe, RIP Mamba, the reason why Kobe resonates so much, even 4 years after his passing, is because Kobe had this level of intensity and focus. And there's a reason why MJ embraced him in a way that, if I got to be a LeBron hater for a second.
Oh, man.
But there's a reason why MJ embraced him. People talk about, well, Kobe just copied Mike. Well, everybody tried to copy Mike,
Jordan.
Right? But Kobe got it down because he studied it to a science and he had the drive. That's the thing that was unmatched. You've never seen anyone other than, and I'm going to say this because I'm a Steph fan, other than Steph, that level of attention to detail and that maniacal drive to be great. Because if you look at
master the game,
those
guys mastered basketball, man. Every single thing you could ask on a basketball court, they mastered it. We don't know if these guys have it anymore.
There's guys that work very hard, and we're not saying that they don't work, but in anything that you look at across the board, you're going to see that there is the bottom 10% and the top 10%. And in the top 10%, you're going to have this top 1%, and there's going to be 1% of 1%. And whether it's economically, whether it's educationally, whatever the case may be, you're always going to have that separation. 80% of the people are always going to be in the middle. And even in the league, you're seeing that most players are just kind of in the middle. Those are the disposable players, right? And they're interchangeable. That's great economics for the teams, but it makes it harder to build a championship team because you're trying to pick. Out of that 80%, you need the creme de la creme, and then you need the 1% in terms of your stars. And you hopefully have the 1% of the 1%, the 1 or 2 or 3 best players in the world, right, who are able to catapult and add the leadership and be able to drive the rest of your team to be that engine. And I think one of the things, in my business, working with clients, you find even with clients that, and I'm kind of exclusive, so we work with a certain type of clientele. But even in that, there's a top 10%, and there's a 1%, and there's a 1% of the 1%. Most people are not going to be driven to work at that highest possible level. And you see that, and what happens is if you don't have a mechanism for being able to attract that, this is why the Latin American market was able to take over in baseball, is because they're creating these farms, right? You've got these small communities where there's nothing, right? Barely even running water. The only thing they have is baseball. In soccer, European football, you got the same thing. You've got these kids who are growing up in villages. All they do all day and night is play football, soccer. That's all they can do because they can envision themselves being there. And so that level of hunger, that drive, that determination that takes you there, that can transform an entire village, not just their family, but an entire village of people, is not something that you see. And as we're more affluent here in the States, and the level of comfort, because even in the hood, whereas before most people didn't even have Wi-Fi, now everybody's kind of got a cell phone. You can be tricked and lulled into complacency in a lot of ways, you know? And so there's not the same drive there to do anything, right? To be anything. You can just play games and eat your snacks and kind of do what you
all
want to
day,
be.
watch streams.
Right. So I don't know what you can do other than you've got to find ways to be able to pour into young people and to be able to open their minds up to the possibilities and to be able to cultivate this greater a desire to be great. I'll just say I'm not sure how that happens because we've got an educational system that doesn't really support that anyway, right? So we're pushing people towards the middle.
We want everybody to be mid.
Right. We want people to be so
Fall in line. Jeez,
Right.
that's a word right there, man. Golly.
yeah.
Basketball is following society. Sports is following society right now,
Yeah.
where you're going to have your top of the top guys who are probably intrinsically driven to be great.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody else is going to be like, I'm good enough to get paid. So I'm going to sit in this office 9 to 5, get paid, and go home. Ouch.
When you look at certain players who, there's this kid, Mikey, I can't remember his last name, but Mikey Williams, thank you. Mikey Williams, who's supposed to go to Memphis past year, got in trouble. But Mikey's been famous for 3 or 4 years.
For a long time.
For a long time. He's been making millions of dollars. So for him to have his head on straight, for him to be driven to be the best, right, and to continue to evolve, that's a challenge. Unless he's got people that are on his team, that are in his family, that are really in his ear, keeping him out of trouble, keeping his head on straight, that's going to be a challenge. And this can have every advantage. But there's a delusion, there's a delusional quality to social media. There's a delusional quality to society right now where people can just kind of believe their numbers. I've got 1 million followers. I must be dope, right? What do I need to push for? What do I need to drive for? You know, and I mean, look, you and I we're cut from a different cloth in terms of the way we were raised. And we're like, hey, it doesn't matter how we don't have to wait until we've got a huge studio to do it. We're going to do it here. We're going to get out the mud. We're going to drive. Right. We're going to make it be what it's going to be. And you can see the results from that. But I don't ever see you settling on your laurels, right? You got a family, you got a why, you got a reason to push.
It would be easy to say I ain't got time, to be honest with you.
yeah.
And I don't.
We had to lock out the kids so we just do the podcast, right? So it's there. All of those elements are there, and it takes something extra to be able to pull that out. And you're just going to find it across the board. The numbers always work out. The math always maths. It's going to be bottom 10%, medium 80%, top 10%, and then you're going to get the 1%, you know. I guess I'm saying the top 9%, and then the top 1%, and then the 1% of the 1%. Yeah. You know, 0.1%.
The bell curve, like the extreme end.
Yeah. And you just get to, I think the thing that, you know, if I would have anybody take anything away from this is that you get to choose where you want to be on that curve. You know, it's really up to you. There's no excuse now in terms of finances or whatever. People have the opportunity to make more money. It's easier to get rich in America. It's easier than it's ever been. There's more resources, more knowledge, more support, and it's still hard. It's still lonely, but it's easier than it's ever been, and you just get to decide. And I think that players, athletes, whatever you are, you get to choose. And unfortunately, most people just resort to the medium. You know, so It is what it is.
Yeah, let me say this. So let's switch topics here real quick. So you talked about Mikey having advantages, right, and being famous for a while, and essentially throwing it all away, right, getting in trouble and all that. But finding motivation, even when you come from a place of affluence, right? So Bronny James, Bronny was spotlight since he was born. Right? Bronny is the ultimate Nepo baby, but he is the ultimate spotlight kid. And to me, I appreciate the fact that Bronny, despite the fact that dude grew up in the spotlight, he's been rich his whole life. Bronny doesn't have to work ever in his life, but somehow he made it good enough to even be considered to make the NBA, even though some people feel like his nepotism got him there or whatever. To even get to the point where Bronny is considered to make the league, despite the fact that he's rich, he could have sat on his behind at home, could have been a streamer, could have done nothing essentially for the rest of his life, and he would have been straight. But he makes it to this point, and people are like, he shouldn't be in the league. It's nepotism, and they're hating on him. You made a Facebook post talking about you weren't really feeling the fact that LeBron got Bronny the opportunity. I'm, on the other hand, saying if I'm in LeBron's shoes, and I think everyone would do this, Fred, we're giving our kids a dang opportunity, man. Like our kids, call it nepotism, call it whatever you want. If my kids are good enough, right, to be like Bronny, and I was in LeBron's shoes, I would have made a way. LeBron's been carrying the league for over a decade, bro. Like I would have made a way for my kid to get in the league. Even though I feel like Bronny's an NBA level player anyway, right? He could certainly play. Maybe not. He's not going to be a 30-point scorer, but he could certainly play. He could be a rotational guy. But anyway, if I'm LeBron, I would have done it. Giannis got his brother on the roster. Thanasis on the Bucks roster. Nobody's hating on that. Like, people are hating on Bronny because they don't like Bron, man. And, of course, Bron gets clicks. Bronny's going to get clicks all of a sudden nowadays. So, being a businessman that you are, you know relationships get you places. JJ Redick, relationship got him a gig, right? We all know that. He wasn't qualified for the Lakers gig, right? Relationships get you places, whether it's through family, whether it's through friendships, whether you have to pay for a relationship, right? Like you pay to meet somebody and you end up developing a relationship. Whatever it is, as an entrepreneur, you know relationships get you things, and it's not always fair. So I felt like, why are we bashing Bron? His kid got a relationship, and people do it in corporate America, Wall Street, all the time. Why can't LeBron use his position to get his kid an opportunity like everybody else does? You feel differently. So I'm going to give you the mic and let you explain your thoughts.
So, first of all, I'm going to give Bronny the same credit that you did. Bronny appears by all intents and purposes to be a great kid. He appears to have his head on straight. You know, he's never gotten in any trouble. We just talked about Mikey Williams. You know, Bronny certainly could have been one of those kids who got out there, was doing whatever, smoking, drinking, getting into trouble, and because he had access to all that money. So by all intents and purposes, he works hard. He's a great individual, got good character. So I respect him for that. My take was not about, let me frame it this way. So the post that I made was really highlighting one particular point, which I'll kind of highlight a couple other points that come out of that. And in short, I got crucified for this post.
Yes.
I got roasted, right? I'm standing on business. It is what it is. I said what I said, right? But I got roasted for it. And everybody, you're just a hater. But people didn't read. Most people who didn't read the post because it's a long post. I write long posts. It is, you know.
I read the joint, bro, and I didn't comment, but I'm like,
I said you should comment.
You had the total opposite view of what I'm thinking, and other people, right? It's like, you would have done the same thing, bro, and other people take advantage of nepotism. So anyway, go ahead, man.
So here's why I don't think I was making the argument that people were making, or I do think it's opposite, but here's why. My point was that as a father, right, my job as a father is not to make things easier for my children.
Really?
My job as a father is to make them strong enough to take advantage of every opportunity. Now, it doesn't mean that I won't give them access, that I won't use my network where it's appropriate. But I don't think that there's any advantage to me lowering the bar for my child so they can step over it just because other people have done it. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people were getting caught up in the whole.
Can I cut you off though? You kind of do, right? Even if you don't outright say, okay, I'm gonna give my kid a job, you kind of lower the bar because you're gonna have relationships that the average person doesn't have. Like when I was coming out of school, I had 0 relationships, and I'm not great at networking, so it was difficult for me to get my foot in the door to get a job, right? I had essentially, of course, I had help, but I was essentially on my own. I didn't have anybody to refer me to a corporate 500 company, right? Mm-hmm. If I, as a parent now in corporate America, Fortune 500 company, and my kid's coming up, I can say, hey, man, there's jobs open. I'm going to have my kid apply and, take a look at him. I'm not going to say, hey, hire him. Maybe not. Maybe. I don't know. But I'm going to say, hey, man, take a look at him. I feel like that's lowering the bar in a sense because the hurdle would have been this high without you, but now it's this high, right? Mm-hmm. That's my take on it. Maybe I'm misinterpreting what you're saying.
So let me ask you a question. I mean, because we're diverting a little bit. I'll put it more on your turf, right? Imagine that you had someone that didn't just make introductions for you, but had taught you how to network, had taught you the skills necessary. So the inside game, you went and got an education. But beyond the education, we now understand, right, there's a whole other game that goes into building these relationships and having access to opportunities. There's a way you need to think about the game that you're playing, whether it's a corporate game or a business game, entrepreneurship, whatever the case may be. You've got to be able to understand the unwritten rules,
Right.
and have the skill set, right, to be a better speaker, to be more charismatic, to understand how to influence people and be a better leader. All of those are qualities that you can be pouring into your children, because that's one of the things that we don't talk about, is that the parts of the game that we learn now, if we pour those into our kids, they can take leaps and they can take more advantage of these access that we can give them. So here's the thing. I'll take it back. Let me finish my point on LeBron, and then we'll take it wider again. The point that I was saying about LeBron, and the reason why I was saying this was because, for instance, as soon as he gets drafted, 30 seconds later, I'm looking on Instagram, and there's an ad for Beats, And here's the thing about it. What we're doing is we're not celebrating Bronny. We're celebrating LeBron. Look what LeBron did. Look at how dope it is that LeBron got his wish. Look at how great LeBron is. People want to make the argument, this makes him the GOAT, man, because he got his kid in the league.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, of course. But we're saying these things, and we are emphasizing, and all the spotlight is on LeBron, but all the pressure to perform is on Bronny, because that's the other thing that comes with standing beside your dad, being on the team. He's got a guaranteed contract. He doesn't have to compete for that spot, which means that when you're in LA where people are used to championships, and this team is not a championship level team
At all.
So when he's on the court, how much support is he? Oh, hey, we're still happy. Yeah, after that feel-good moment where you get those clicks, people forget the cycle of social media and the world that we're in now. We love you today, we hate you tomorrow. And he's going to get that pressure to perform. Now, I'm not saying that Bronny is not potentially a very good NBA player. But the thing about Bronny is that he's never been the best player on any team he's played on. So when you're talking about these second round picks, these other guys were ballers, right? By and large, even the guys at the top from France that nobody knew about, the scouts look. You go number one for a reason. In a weak draft, you still got to pick somebody number one.
Right.
So these guys, and Bronny was never considered to be a worst round pick. People were always wondering, is he going to get picked at all?
Well, before the heart thing, before going to college, right, and the heart thing, coming out of high school, there were talks that he was a first round pick, right? But didn't last long. Right. But still, there were talks when he was first coming out of high school that this guy could have been a first round pick, maybe top 20 pick or something like that, not lottery or anything like that.
And we'll never know what that would have been, because he did get. I think Bronny, should have stayed another year.
Me too. I agree.
I feel like, and as a competitor, I personally would have wanted to make my own stand, to make my own name, to make it clear, right? I would have went competitively, just wanted to say, I know there's this thing that I just want to make it to the league. But if you're of that caliber, if your dad is who your dad is, there's something to be said that at least I was a number one pick. I was a first round pick. Mm-hmm. I was somebody's number one pick.
Yeah.
Right? No one can ever say, and I know Rich Paul supposedly called around and told teams not to draft him so the Lakers could get him. Again, there's still that stigma that he has to wear, and he's got to outperform that. So he doesn't just have to, as a second rounder, prove that he can make a team. He's got to prove that he deserves to have that spot on his own because his dad put that collar around him. And so what I'm saying is that as a father, because I feel my job is to empower my kids to have the skill set to be able to stand on their own, and then I can give them the advantages of being my child based on my network, the knowledge I have, etc. That's a different thing.
Are you making an assumption then that LeBron didn't give Bronny the skill set to stand on his own? Like, I feel like Bronny is.
Well, where's the evidence, though?
I think I think Bronny has a role in the league, and I think he's a smart player. I would say he gets that from his dad. I think he's fundamentally sound. His IQ is there. Like, I think his dad poured that into him. Maybe it's genetics. I don't know, right? The athleticism, that stuff is genetics. But I think at 6'1", 200 whatever pounds that he is, right? Like, he's not going to be LeBron. He's not going to be 6'8", 250, 6'9", 250.
Right.
So he's going to have to be a smarter player at his frame to play. I think that's stuff that LeBron poured into him. So I'm going to assume and say and give LeBron the credit, hey, man, you raised a pretty dang good basketball player to get him to have the work ethic, right? You didn't raise lazy kids. You didn't raise kids getting in trouble, Bron. So I'm going to give Bron the credit and the benefit of the doubt to say, hey, man, in that sense, you did a pretty damn good job of preparing your kid to the point where he would even be considered a pick in the NBA, right?
So let me ask you a
now
question.
you pulled the levers to get him in the door, but I think he did a pretty good job of setting him up to even get to the door to even be considered. Like, if he was straight garbage, he would have never even got to that point.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. Are you telling me right now that Bronny James is one of the best 450 players in the world?
No, but bro, there are guys in the league right now, and I will stand and die on this hill. The best 450 players in the world are not in the NBA. In the NBA, more and more, like I talked earlier, is becoming relationships. Dude, like if I talked about this in my last episode, the under 17 USA team is a bunch of nepo babies. Gilbert Arenas' kid, Trevor Ariza's kid, the Boozer twins, like all these dudes, his kids. Bryce James was on there. Nepo kids and people with connections make up the NBA. A lot of them, dude. So Bronny just happens to have the ultimate connection. Bronny is connected to God, right? Some of them have to go through the preacher. Bronny is Jesus Christ. He has the ultimate connection to the man. You know what I'm saying? So he gets his way.
Yeah.
He gets the advantage that others may not have. But I'm not gonna sit here and act like everybody in the NBA is one of the best 450 players in the world. That to me is totally incorrect. There are dudes overseas who never got the opportunity because they didn't have the right connections, man.
Yeah, but first of all,
But let me say this. You're right. Bronny right now is not one of the best 450 players in the league. And I feel like he should have went to college. He should have stayed in college to hone in on his skills. That I would agree with.
okay. Besides the fact that you just compared Bronny James to Jesus Christ, which is the take of the year.
He doesn't need to go through the pastor, man. He doesn't need the priest. He goes straight to the man. Yo, Dad, I need a hookup.
All I'm saying is that Bronny is going to have to literally turn water into wine to make this.
100%.
But the other thing, though, and my boy, shout out to Chandler Lucas, who made this point, and really drove it home, which was something that was kind of niggling at the undercurrent of this whole thing for me, which was we've been celebrating the nepotism, and we're saying, well, everybody else does it. Why can't we? Mm-hmm. And what we used to do as a culture was embrace black excellence. And what we're saying now is we're tired of trying to chase, let me not beat up the mic. We're tired of trying to chase black excellence. Now we just want the results. We want to be in there. And what this does to me is that it weakens every argument for equality and things, because what we've been saying for the longest time is we're just as good or better than the people that are taking our place and keeping us from having access. And what we're saying now is, well, don't worry about that. We just give us the access, whether we're good enough or not. We just want to have it because we feel like we deserve it at this point. And we're really saying LeBron deserves it, so Bronny gets the benefit. We don't even care if he's good. But as a culture, that doesn't help us collectively, because we need excellence has always been the way that we've overcome.
Twice as good to all that stuff.
All of that. We know that there are people who have gone uncelebrated but have been excellent at what they've done and have made transformative things. The person who invented the cell phone, right, the wireless technology, was a black man. Mm-hmm. You know, the person who invented GPS was a black woman.
Right.
So we know that they may not have reaped the benefits of those things, but they had excellence in what they did and they created excellent results. And what I'm saying, moreover to that, is that if we start abandoning that idea, that actually, because in an economic standpoint, we're actually further behind in terms of comparative wealth to white households than we were in the 60s, right? So we feel like we're doing better and people's society is wealthier overall, but comparatively, we're actually moving backwards. We actually have we have a 0.5% of the overall U.S. wealth is housed in black households. And that's exactly the same amount of wealth we had when slavery was emancipated.
I shouldn't be laughing.
Think about that's 160 years ago.
Man.
And in 160 years, we have accumulated no more collective wealth in terms of the percentage overall.
But we had a black president. Uh-oh.
Congratulations, right?
Uh-oh.
And immediately after that, we had a president who tried to basically erase everything.
We had an orange one.
America's colorblind now. Congratulations. But we're looking at that, and that to me, that ultimately that was the argument that I was making, is that do we want to be excellent or not? And what we're saying is that by and large, people are like, screw being excellent. I just want the outcome. And I get that, right? But this is the counter argument that many people are making, 100%. The anti-DEI people are making. Like, you know, they call Kamala the DEI
VP.
Yeah, right. And she's eminently qualified. Degrees. Right. Eminently qualified. Whether you like her or not, you can't say she's not qualified.
Yeah, I hear you. Listen, I am torn on this because I agree with you. Remember when we started the show, I talked about that. All the affluent kids and all the kids with connections, they're the ones who's going to get the gigs and the jobs in the NBA, and the NBA is going to be watered down. The American talent's going to be watered down as a result because we're gatekeeping others who could be even more excellent, right, than the guys who are going to. I totally agree. But at the same time, I think my position is that you're right. The world runs on this stuff, man. And it's like, yo, I feel like I would have done the same thing had I had LeBron standing in the league. Like, I would have put my kids on, man. And I'm not saying they would have been straight garbage and I would have gotten them an opportunity. But if my kids were teetering on, getting drafted or not, I would have pulled some strings to get them drafted, right? I don't think anybody can say, well, Bronny is totally undraftable. There are other guys who have been drafted averaging less points than Bronny or close to what Bronny was averaging, right? Peyton Watson was averaging less than 10 the year he got drafted. Like, somebody in this year's draft, I forget his name. He didn't play in college, but he was averaging like 5 points a game. So because the NBA is becoming more role players and everybody's pigeonholed outside of the 0.1% like you talk about, right? The 1% of the 1%. Because of that, I feel like Bronny's a good enough player to get drafted. I think he'll have a role if he keeps working hard. I compared him to somebody like Pat Bev. I'm like, Pat Bev is like same height, same weight as Bronny right now, right? I said, if Bronny and Pat Bev get an outlet pass and they're coming down the court at you, you're the lone man back. Who are you more scared of, Pat Bev or Bronny?
Oh, yeah, Bronny.
If somebody has an open three right now at the 3-point line, Pat Bev or Bronny, who are you more scared of?
Oh, no, I'm more scared of Pat Bev.
Really?
Yeah.
As a 3-point shooter?
Because Pat Bev has been in big games and he hit big shots.
Dude, big game or not, you're trusting Pat Bev to make an open three right now over Bronny.
How many threes have we ever seen Bronny hit in any game?
Bro, I'm gonna be
in high school,
shocked right now. You play basketball, dog. I am shocked. I know you haven't seen it at the pro level. Just looking at their forms, I would trust Bronny right now with an open three.
Bronny's form is much better, yes. But
I would trust Bronny right now with an open three. Obviously, I'm not saying Bronny right now is the level of Pat Bev. And a lot of people came at me saying Pat Bev averaged 30 in high school. That was over 15 years ago, whatever it was. We're not in high school no more. And a lot of people get buckets in high school, don't do nothing in the league or even make it to the league.
I mean, maybe, but Bronny didn't average 30.
But Bronny, he did not. So even right now, I'm not saying Bronny is a better player because defensively right now, Pat Bev is a dog, and his mentality right now probably puts him over Bronny and a lot of cats who probably have better skill sets.
Right.
But I was just saying that to make the point that Bronny, if he keeps improving and he looks like the kind of guy who's going to keep working on his game, I think he has a chance to have a career in the league where it's not just, oh, LeBron got him a gig and he flames out after his first contract.
So my last point on this, and I don't, and I said this in my post, I don't want Bronny to fail. Like I said, I think he's a great kid. I hope that he is able to make this a success. My point was, from a fatherhood standpoint, it's not what LeBron has poured into him, but a lot is shown about the way that the praise has been heaped on him and the way that he has kind of cultivated it, right? He's welcomed that. And LeBron welcomes, this is one of the reasons why he gets the hate that he gets, because he cultivates that attention. He's always kind of building that argument of being the GOAT. And always, talking about himself in the third person. He's got the show, The Shop, where he's constantly talking about how great he talks about himself as if he's retired while he's still playing.
That's true.
And he's been doing this for years.
I give you that.
So the comparisons are there. But beyond that, as a father, it's not about me. It's not about what I want. I can want it all that I want, but I have to ensure that my kid has what's in him, and he has even a decision to go pro. I feel like, right? And I'm not his father, but if it's my kid, I'm looking at him and saying, there's a standard that we have in this house of how you perform. And right now, you haven't performed up. You might feel like you're ready, but let's make sure you're ready, and let's let the world know that you're ready. Leave no doubt. That used to be, a mantra. Leave no doubt. Leave it all on the field. And there's no evidence based on his resume, right? You can look at him as a player athletically. There's a lot of athletes that are out there, but there's no evidence in his resume that says that Bronny is going to be the quality of player that's going to be able to endure in the league. We just talked about the interchangeability, right? Mm-hmm. Right now, there's another 6'2", 6'3" guard with a 38-inch vertical and can shoot 38% or 40% from the three that's coming for Bronny's spot. But Bronny's got a guaranteed contract, so he's not going to get that spot. He's got to make it somewhere else. And so we're going to see over these next 4 years how that plays out, because LeBron's got maybe 3 if he presses it, if he waits for Bryce.
I would prefer for Bron to retire after next year, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. That's a whole different conversation. The NBA doesn't have like we talked about, the NBA doesn't have any more marketable stars coming up, so they have to milk LeBron, and they're glad he keeps coming back. I feel like at some point the NBA needs to move on, and somebody like Anthony Edwards can take the mantle and run with it, because if Bron doesn't retire, somebody like Ant-Man can never take the mantle, because the media will always be drawn to LeBron. So that's a whole separate conversation. So
yeah, he sucks the air out of the room, that's for sure. when it comes to branding, yeah, he definitely does. I think they're trying to do that. It helped that the Timberwolves advanced as far as they did to the Western Conference Finals against Dallas. I think the challenge is going to be, he's in Minnesota. People say it doesn't matter that you're in a smaller market as much now. It still does kind of matter. You're not at the center of the media universe. Right. And so he has to do more and more amazing things to be able to draw that attention.
It would have been easier to have been a superstar in New York.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
What you're saying. In L.A.
Anthony Edwards is a Knick? What?
This brother's getting MJ comparisons already. Can you imagine?
Right.
Goodness.
Finally, they got their MJ.
They're beating the Bulls now. This was a good point you made. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and totally disagree with what you're saying. You're right. The excellence it takes to make it to the NBA, some guys are going to bypass it. Mm. I just feel like some of the people who responded to your post basically said others have been doing it for so long, it's about time we get to do it, which you disagree with. But at the same time, I'm like, if it were me, I'm probably doing it too. And a lot of people are doing it too, and they're lying when they're saying they wouldn't. They're just hating because it's LeBron and they don't like LeBron. That's just my take on it.
One other point, just more broadly on society. Do we want a world where people aren't even trying to be their best anymore? They're just trying to figure out where the hookup is. And I get that any regular job is necessarily just about paying the bills and taking care of yourself and your family, right? I get that. But at the same time, everyone is better off when we are able to experience somebody working in excellence at their job.
But are you speaking to a world that doesn't exist and never will?
What I'm saying is that we already...
In business, man, I'm going to tell you this, to be honest with you, right? Whether as an entrepreneur or working in a corporate setting, like, there's dudes who are trying their best, who are putting their best foot forward, and they're in college. There's always slackers who are just happy to be there, who got a connection to go to Harvard.
Right.
George Bush is president because of his pops, went to Yale, barely passed. Mm-hmm. There's many examples, and there will continue to be examples. Wall Street, like the Trumps, like it. Are you speaking of a utopia of a place that will never exist? So is it? And people are thinking, yo, let me just get in where I fit in, man. Like, as much as I want the world to be equality, to be equal opportunity, the best of the best, and people are clowning DEI and they're clowning affirmative action and all these things, right? White folks saying you guys get an unfair advantage. Well, you got an unfair advantage. You got connections for 400 years that we don't get to be part of.
Right.
Are you speaking to a world that doesn't exist, never has existed, never will exist? Like, if you were a pharaoh, your kid became a pharaoh. If you were a Qing dynasty, a Ming dynasty, you pass it down to your kid. You know what I'm saying? It's always been like that. The world runs on connections and hookups. And excellence takes a back seat. Are you speaking to a world that will never exist, like only in your mind? I know it's an idea, great ideal. Mm-hmm. I would love it to be everyone on their own merit. But listen, not to hate, but I think I'm pretty good at talking sports. Mm-hmm. But you know what? There are cats with bigger platforms, with bigger sports podcasts because they're connected to an NBA player or they're connected to some exec or something.
Right.
That's just the world. I can't complain about that. I just got to work my ass off to get there. And unfortunately, the kid who's going to take Bronny's spot, if he doesn't have the connections, he's going to have to work his ass off to take Bronny's spot. Because the NBA, even the NFL, like these things, especially with so much money floating around, it's going to have to be connections, more and more connections to get you in the door. And if you don't got it, you got to be 3 times as good as the next guy.
Well, the thing is, but you still have to perform when you get your shot. Right?
Absolutely.
And the character that is built in you allows you to be able to sustain it at a higher level for longer. When you're talking about, am I speaking to a utopian world? It's not about a utopian world. It's about understanding that the character that is required for you to break through. Because here's the thing. Yes, you can be great, excellent at your job for a long time and feel like you're being unnoticed. But it's harder and harder in this world not to be. It's harder to be great at something and not be noticed. We're seeing it. We see people there are people who have YouTube channels with millions and millions of subscribers where they just focus on working out or sneakers, or they focus on one thing, but they know it in such detail and they're so great at what they do, they eventually break through. Everybody starts from zero. Now, you may have advantages. Yes, there's guys who join these different podcasts or whatever because their homeboy is a former NBA player or plays in the league. But that doesn't mean that they're great at what they do. And that doesn't mean that they can sustain and stand on their own. So if their homeboy goes off, something happens to him, or he decides to go and do something else, he's bored with the podcast, can they sustain on their own? Are they able to take that opportunity and elevate it? You may get an opportunity, but an opportunity is just where it starts. And if you don't have the skill set, the excellence, if you're not walking in your gift, as my book, Breaking Orbit, available on Amazon, talks about, if you're not walking in your gift, you're not going to be able to sustain at that level. And I'll tell you, there's nothing more frustrating, nothing more sad than seeing somebody who gets to see the top of the mountaintop for a second and then can never get there again. You think about all the other NBA players who had so much promise, the Greg Odens of the world, the Brandon Roys of the world. And sometimes it's injuries, and sometimes they just never reach their promise. The Kwame Browns of the world, right? So you have these people that have this opportunity. but it never pans out the way they do. And sometimes that's more painful because you've seen that opportunity and it goes away. I get that there's a lot of inequity and racism and sexism and unfairness and nepotism and all these other isms that are out there that keep qualified people from getting where they should go. That doesn't mean you shouldn't still strive to be excellent, because you can take any opportunity and turn it into something if you're excellent, if you're great, if you're focused on the nuances and the details. But if you're just looking for a shortcut and look, we all know there's people in the hood that's always looking for the hookup. They're always looking for the shortcut. After a while, people get tired of dealing with them. Like, bruh, I got to do all the heavy lifting for you, right? Because you're not willing to step up and just carry your own load. Right? So all I'm saying is that, do we want to live in a world full of people that are always looking for the shortcut? Or do we want to live in a world where there are people that are walking in excellence, are truly giving their all? Because one of the complaints that people give about the NBA or different sports leagues is that these guys don't even seem like they're trying.
They don't even care no.
I don't care, right? You're just out here doing whatever, right? And what does that do? That turns you off. It turns you the wrong way. And we've got so many people that are doing that. But when you see somebody who's doing something, I sent my wife a video on Instagram last week it's a video of this woman who's making paper from bamboo. And so she's going through all these different steps. She goes and she gets the wood and she breaks it down. And she takes the shavings and then she washes it in the river. And then she takes it and she dries it and then she pounds it down into pulp. And then she washes that again. And this process is taking days, weeks even, to make this very, very special paper, right? And you see this process and it almost moved me to tears because the end product was so beautiful, but seeing the whole process made it more beautiful because you saw what she was willing to go through to make this special thing, right? Paper that you would sit there and want to write the greatest sonnets, the most beautiful poem to your wife, to frame this paper so it could last forever. Because why would you want to let that effort go to waste? And what we're saying is that, bump all that, just give me the paper. Bump all that, just give me the accolades. I just want the follows and the likes.
That's, unfortunately, that is society. I just don't know how you fix that. And I don't know if you can blame Bron for putting his kid in that opportunities. But that's what it is, man. I could talk about this thing all day. But it's an interesting, to me, it's like, I see it both ways. So, we can go on forever. So let's do that. Let's pivot real quick. Again, right? We talk about sports here, but I want to talk about real stuff. Having you on, entrepreneur, pretty much your whole life now. So I want to segue into, you talk about, some of your business or entrepreneur and motivational and inspiring thoughts, as we're talking about the different topics here. But I want to pivot to focus on entrepreneurship. Because a lot of people, say they're entrepreneurs, but they're really not. They just got a hobby.
Right.
So I want to talk with you about entrepreneurship and really, this has to be a multi-part conversation, but becoming an entrepreneur, what it takes, right? Getting started. One of your posts talk about, confidence and overcoming fear, right? And all of this, right? To make it to the NBA, like, you got to be one of the most confident dudes to ever pick up a ball. Share with, I guess, my audience, like, entrepreneurship and your journey, how you got to where you are, how you sustained it, and how people can get started and keep the course and not give up and have the confidence to become an entrepreneur, to spread their wings on their own and not rely on a paycheck. How to, when you don't have a network and no connections, you're not Bronny James, all of that, right? I feel like goes into this conversation. So let's have a conversation, if you will, share from your experience, what makes an entrepreneur, how to become an entrepreneur, a true entrepreneur, and making sense out of entrepreneurship and not just, doing anything, that makes money or whatever.
Yeah, so being a true entrepreneur is not just about having a side hustle, right? And I think that that's also one of the things that kind of gets pushed out there, right? How can you make money? What's just about making money? Entrepreneurship is about making a contribution. It's about having a very specific vision for yourself and then having a vision for what you want to build in the world. So you're seeing, I tell my kids, like, so we homeschool our kids, and in business class, we lay out the fundamentals for them.
Wow, you got a business class.
Well, that's their favorite class too. They love that. And so this summer they're all working individually on their own projects for business. One of the things that I told them is like entrepreneurship is about solving problems, right? So you have to have a problem that you are looking to solve in the world. And many people are looking at what is a business opportunity, right? I hear this term, right? Run this play and you can make $10,000 a month or $50,000, so it's like, and people think about it in terms of plays, or we talk about sports, right? There's a difference between running a play and having an offense, right? The capacity to be able to run an offense. So you'll see, some players will come off the sideline and they may run the wildcat. So they'll come in to run a play. That's the only play they can run. And so a lot of people, when they're thinking about business and entrepreneurship, they're thinking about it as a side hustle. They can only run this one play. And so a lot of people are chasing tactics. They're being sold tactics because that's the easiest thing, right? Entrepreneurship, and this is what we work on with our clients, it's not about running a play. It's about being a better player, being a better operator. And so if you can operate the business better, you can understand the angles. You see how to be a better problem solver, a better leader in your business, and create something that has more value outside of you. So when you're looking at it from just getting started, I always tell people, and I don't really work with startups like that anymore. Like most of our clients they have between 5 and 50 employees. They're doing, somewhere in a range of $3 million or less in that terms. But even when I'm talking to people, friends or whoever, and they're talking about starting a business, I always tell them, like, think about the problem that you want to solve. What's the particular niche that you're going to be in? And be so specific with that it feels like there's not enough people in it. But what you do is now you become what we call a category of one business, right? And that means that in this world, there's a lot of people that make cell phones, but there's one Apple. And Apple is not a cell phone maker. Apple is a brand. Apple is an idea, And so what you want to become is that singular brand. I call it singularity. You want to have that singularity that allows people to have to come to you and you alone for the thing that you do. And when you think about it, I talk about this concept in my book, that a lot of times we were talking earlier about how school pushes everybody towards the middle. Mm-hmm. And so what schools and industries do is they decide that there's going to be a need for certain workers over the next 5 to 10 years. And so they start herding people towards this work, like cybersecurity or engineering or whatever the case may be. There's the whole push for STEM students and STEAM and all that kind of things, because we need more scientists. We need more things. So from that standpoint, they're pushing everybody towards this thing. But even in that, where can you be a specialist? Because the specialists are the ones that are the cream of the crop. The specialists are the ones that call their own shot. And so as an entrepreneur, you want to specialize in something that sets you apart. And so in any industry, there's any number of brands. Like I see your son has a skateboard down here. There's a certain brand of skateboard. Nigel Sylvester took a skateboard, and now he has a singular style of doing it. So now he's able to build all these other things out of that, right? Because he was able to establish a singular style and the way that he did this thing that other people, hundreds of kids, hundreds of thousands, millions of kids skateboard. Mm-hmm. He was able to take this thing that millions of people do and do it at such a high level. He was a specialist. We look at a heart surgeon or a brain surgeon, right? There's lots of different types of surgeons, lots of doctors. But the heart surgeon and the brain surgeon, they said, I'm only going to specialize in the heart or the brain, right? All the different parts of the body, doctors look and they're generalists. Generalists are disposable. They're interchangeable. When you have a specialist, a sniper, right? You have somebody who has a particular set of skills, Liam Neeson, right? That's somebody that you're called on. And so if you start thinking of the world in that way, it reframes how you see everything. And you start to actually look at your own particular gifts and your own skills that allow you to be able to stand out. What is the thing that you do in a way that no one else can do it to get the outcome that only you can get?
Yo, I hear that. I feel that. What if I just want to start an Amazon business, bro? And people on Amazon there are Amazon millionaires.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I can't call myself an entrepreneur?
All right, so let me, I'm going to sound like I'm contradicting myself. You can, but even in that, there's so much that you get to learn about that process. And ultimately, you make it harder for yourself if you just want to be a generalist. There's a certain fundamental skill set that you got to learn to be able to, you got to learn how to post on Amazon, how to be able to get the products, all those different fundamental skills. But beyond that, to make it sustainable, because you got to understand, even on Amazon, when you look at there's all kinds of online sellers out there. There's your Etsy's and there's eBay and there's Temu and there's Shein and there's all these different resellers, right? But Amazon is singular in what they do. Amazon lost money for 20 years in a row because they were so obsessed with building this thing that was going to dominate. And now they are top 1 and 2, the most valuable company in history, right? Mm-hmm. $1 trillion company, because they've created so much distance between themselves and whoever is second, right? Walmart's tried to compete with them and couldn't catch up, and still trying, never will. I feel safe to say that. Amazon has created their own moat that is so wide, it's like the Atlantic Ocean. And so because of that,
Amazon has become a verb. Whenever you become a verb, you're a problem.
Right. And if you go to any house in America now and you go into the garage, you're likely to see 3, 4, 5, 50 Amazon boxes, right? Because it's become a way of life now. And they've been able to dominate and create that level of dominance because they had that attention to detail. And yes, you can be an Amazon seller and make $1 million a year just doing the regular stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being an entrepreneur. So that's the contradictory part of it. Mm-hmm. All I'm saying is that if you're going to work that hard to make $1 million, why not be excellent at the thing that you're excellent at and make 10 million or 50 million or 100 million? Because it's not harder to make more money. You just have to shift your mindset and understand that you're playing a different game. And I don't know how to play the game at a lower level. I don't, because I've been there. My first business was a commercial cleaning franchise where I was working 12, 15 hours a day, and I was working into 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. But the reason why I bought a commercial cleaning franchise was not because I wanted to be a janitor or have a janitorial business. It was because I was pursuing a career in music, and that gave me the flexibility to be able to go to the studio the day or night and still leave the studio at 1 o'clock in the morning, go do this work, and then I could go home and go to bed. I didn't have to wake up and go to a 9 to 5. So I could make the money that I was making from a 9 to 5, but I had the flexibility to make it when I wanted to and to be able to pursue the things that I wanted to be able to pursue. And 24 years later, that's all I know now is being able to create the opportunities and the freedom that they want. And every entrepreneur that I ever talk to talks about the fact that they want freedom. And 99% of them never achieve it because the business becomes their job or their prison.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You talked about Amazon seller making $1 million. Well, you might make $1 million in sales, but Amazon's taking 30% of that off the rip. Right. Well, it works out some more. So you're lucky if you walk away with 15% of that profit. So you got $1 million business, but you're making $150,000 a year.
Right.
And $150,000 ain't bad.
But I hear you.
But 150 grand ain't freedom.
That's true. That's true. So your point here is, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, whether it's going to be on Amazon or anything, you're going to have to become so obsessed with whatever it is that you're doing that you essentially master it, and you become, like you said, like what's the phrase you use, like the one of
Category of one.
The category of one. And I never thought of that, which is a good point, because I've tried my hand at entrepreneurship. Clearly that didn't work out, as I wanted it to. I want to go back in again, but the next time I do it, I want to do it right. And as you're talking, I feel like part of the reason is maybe I wasn't as into the details, into the weeds, as I should have been. So, which leads me to my next question for you, right? Is most entrepreneurs, businesses fail within the first couple years.
Right.
How do you overcome that fear of failure to even get started? Because that can paralyze you, man. A lot of people say, hey, man, I want to do it. You know what I'm saying? I want to quit my job, but dude, I don't want to fail. How do you overcome that and get started to the point where you're 24 years later still at it?
Well, the reason why I started was bigger than the business. Because believe me, so I had that business for 7 years. It carried me from living in Alabama to moving here to Atlanta and working in the music industry. And I ran that business remotely for several years. But had I only been doing it for the money, I probably would have quit a long time ago, because it was hard work. I mean, when I had that business for a year while I was working at the Men's Warehouse in Huntsville, Alabama. And I decided in July of 2021 that I was going to leave and go full time. At that time, I was making about $1,100 a month. Now, this is 20 years ago in Alabama.
2001.
Yeah. So my rent was about $300 a month, 1-bedroom apartment. I had enough money between the money that I made from the business at that time to have just enough food to eat. I lived off of oatmeal and peanut butter, spaghetti and broccoli every day, every month. I had enough money for gas to get to my jobs and get back, and pay the rent and pay the lights. That's it. I stayed home during the day because I couldn't afford to go anywhere. So I did that for months until I finally got other contracts and was able to kind of expand. And from there, things took off in a better direction. I was able to kind of get more breathing room. But that was because I had something that I was obsessed with. For me, that was music at the time, right? And to be honest with you, you either need to be obsessed about what you're doing in the business or what you're doing the business for.
The why. People say about the why.
The why has to be bigger. And when the why is big enough, the how doesn't matter. And so that's what will propel you forward. You've got to have something that's going to track back to that. If you focus on the failure becomes more and more seductive in a way. The quitting becomes more seductive because quitting seems the way out, but quitting is actually the reason why you fail. Because the only way you can fail is if you quit. If you just keep going, right? I don't know how many times when Jeff Bezos was in his garage on his knees shipping boxes himself, thinking about this dream that he wanted to build. When Jeff Bezos was building Amazon, the internet was barely a thing.
Right.
You want to build a dominant online service when people are barely online, right? So everything that he was building towards had to be something that was bigger in his mind, that dominated him and got him out of bed in the morning. People talk about passion. It's not about passion, because I doubt he was passionate about shipping out boxes. Mm-hmm. What he was passionate about was creating something that he could see that was beyond anyone else's vision. And you've got to be able to have that clarity of vision, and you've got to be able to, like Will Smith says in The Pursuit of Happiness, you got a dream, you got to protect it.
Let's say you don't have that vision. All right? You don't have the vision for an Amazon. But you want to work for yourself. You want the freedom. Maybe your why is the freedom. I want my freedom of my family to be free of financial burdens. I want to travel the world with my family. Maybe that's your why. I want to spend more time with my family, with my wife, right? That's your why. But you don't have the product vision, right? The Amazon vision. How do you get to the point where you're willing to go out on faith, essentially, to say, okay, I'm going to do something. Maybe I'm just going to be an Amazon reseller, right? And step out and be an entrepreneur in that sense and not be Jeff Bezos, right? Now we can look back and say, kudos, Jeff Bezos, you were a visionary.
Right, right.
What about the guy who doesn't necessarily have that vision, but still has the why there?
So the why has to be the vision until the vision becomes clear. For me, right, I became an entrepreneur accidentally. I didn't think that I was, quote unquote, becoming an entrepreneur. I was, to me, replacing my income from my job with the flexibility and income that the business would provide for me. What happened in the process was that my mindset began to shift as I started to see the freedom in my time open up. Oh, I can make the same amount of money that I was making in 40 hours a week, and I can make it in 15 hours a week. Now, I might have to do it at night, but I can do whatever I want during the day. I can go work out. I can go play ball. I can get another job if I wanted to. I can do music, which was my true passion, and that was my why. The question I will always ask people is, what's the alternative, right? Because if you don't pursue that dream, even if you don't have a vision for how you're going to do it, trying things only makes you better, right? Focus on progress, not perfection. Focus on creating that freedom, even if it's only 1% more free, right? So if you're spending an hour every afternoon after you get off work trying to build this online business or getting a paper route or doing a landscaping business or whatever it is that you're doing, the more you do it, the better you'll get. And then nowadays there's so many resources. There's all kind of books you can read. There's motivational, there's podcasts. All the information you could ever want is out there. And so as you continue to expand your mind, certain things will become more and more clear to you. Again, going back to what I was saying earlier, a lot of people are just trying to find a play. Like, I don't know what play to run, right?
Yeah.
But when we started playing the game as kids, we didn't know how to run any plays. You figured out, okay, the goal is to put the ball in the basket. Let me learn how to shoot. So you learn the individual skills. I got to be able to dribble. I got to be able to pass. I got to play some defense so I can take the ball, right? I've got to be able, and so situationally you start to figure these things out. And then once in a while, the more you play, you start to realize, okay, if I do this, I can be better. I'm better at this particular thing than I'm at that. And starting to be able to hone in, chipping away. It's very much like sculpting, right? When an artist starts with a sculpture, he literally starts with a rock. Right. It's just a hunk of marble. Now he has to be able to see what's inside that. But the first time he sat down with a hunk of marble, he didn't know how to do it. He had to learn how to chip. Well, I got to smooth away here. And what if I do that? I guarantee you that the first time Michelangelo sat down with a hunk of marble, it didn't look like the David sculpture that he had, right? It was probably unrecognizable. But at the same time,
valid point.
he continued because he could see it there. He just had to learn how to have his hands help him to create what his mind already envisioned. And the thing that you're building is not the business. The thing that you're building is the freedom. The thing that you're building is the capacity to be able to travel with your family. The thing that you're building is the generational wealth, the opportunities. People are all talking about, all the nepotism and stuff like that. 99% of people will never have that opportunity because they'll never be LeBron at what they're doing.
Right.
But if you want to be able to create that, you got to be able to figure out, where am I the LeBron of my thing?
So I was going to ask that, and maybe you're going there. How do you become the Jeff Bezos, the LeBron of something, when most of us, if we're being honest, most of the world is averagely talented. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, we don't have the vision, most of us, to see an online mega store a conglomerate where there is no online, right? We're not inventors in that sense, right? Mm-hmm. We're not LeBron James where we're so physically gifted. We weren't blessed in that sense where listen, no, everybody works hard to make the NBA, but some easier than others to make it because LeBron at 6'9", 250, athletic as hell, can do all that, right? Mm-hmm. He has a leg up, right, than others. So most of us, both mentally, right, and physically, we're kind of average, right? Mm-hmm. How do you get to the 0.1%, right, category when you don't got 0.1% skills?
So this is a great question. And I actually talk about this in my book. One of the things that we do is that let me back up. So my book talks about discovering your gift. I talk about this concept called giftedness. What we tend to do is we overlap these different words to have the same meaning. So you in that question even asked it where you use several words interchangeably. Skill, talent, gift, right? And I hear a lot of people talking about their gift and, I have lots of gifts and some people are multi-gifted and other people are single gifted. I look at it as your gift is one thing. Your gift, as I define it, is your unique capacity to impact the world in a singular and powerful way. Your unique capacity to impact the world in a singular and powerful way. Your gift is not a skill because a skill as defined is something that is an acquired ability, right? So you learn, it used to be, we had to learn to type, right? Typing was a skill. Mm-hmm. Building houses is a skill. Being an engineer, we go to school to learn a skill. So if you have to learn it or if you can learn it to acquire it, it can't be a gift because a gift is innate. Now, people talk about being talented, right? A talent is more of a happy accident of genetics. So LeBron is 6'9", 250, can jump 38, 40-inch vertical, all those different things, right? That's talent. That's his genetics. He was born with those things. But that's not
a gift?
That's not,
like, when I think of gift, I think like you were blessed, right? God-given ability. I feel like that's like LeBron was gifted his genetics. Steph was gifted his genetics with his shooting, at least partly, right? Of course, he worked on it, but you get what I'm saying. That's why I would use gift in that sense.
So the reason why we get seduced by that kind of thinking is because we look at where their gift shows up, right? But had LeBron been born 100 years ago, would he have been useless? So would he have just been a big black?
That's a good question, man. So it would have been on a plantation.
Because there are different jobs now, right? There's different capacities. We see people excel in certain areas. They find an area where they can excel, but LeBron will always be playing basketball. Does that mean his gift is no longer valuable? And so what I talk about in the book is the fact that your gift is actually your identity. Your gift is your divine creative essence. One of the things that we do, we talk about certain people who say, well, he's a genius or she's a genius, right? And we think about a genius as a special type of person. But in ancient times, people believed the word genius comes from the word genai, which means spirit attendant upon one at birth, which means that everybody saw that every child was born with their own individual genius, their own gift. There was something special about each of us. What society has done is, through racism and sexism and classism and all these other isms, is that we have defined people and put people on these labels and boxes, and we generalize them all. And we say, oh, you're special because you can do something that is more rare, right? Well, we're all special because each of our gift is rare. There's nothing more rare than one. There's only one Mike Philemon.
Wow.
There's only one me. Wow. There's only one of my gift to be able to have the capacity to do things the way that I can do it. Now, there are talents that I have that are unique to me and my genetics, but all of those things are like wrappings and layers on my gift. So that helps to make it more unique, but it's the expression of that thing that allows me to be able to express my individual divinity, right? My own individual divine humanity and expression of God's divine genius.
Wow. You preaching, bro. I could listen to that all day.
Listen, when I discovered this, man, it blew me away. It changed my life, because how many of us walk around feeling like we're not special?
Bro, I'm telling you, I was reading online, and somebody was saying, and that's why I use this one, saying, people just have to admit that most of us are just average. Right. What you're saying, everyone has a genius.
Yeah.
We just have to figure out what that is.
Right. And most of the times, so there's 9 keys in the book. There's 9 keys to discovering a gift. But in that, none of us have ever taken a class in school where we were taught how to discover what's special about us. Now, maybe you were lucky enough to have a teacher or parents who loved you, who told you that you were special or that you were good or you great. But did they ever tell you why?
Right. At what?
At what? Right? And it's not even so much the what, because your gift is your unique capacity to create an impact in the world. So it's about the outcome that you're able to create. And a lot of times we think, well, how do I do that? The fact of the matter is, sometimes you don't know how you do it. It's just what you do, right? And it can be expressed in different ways. So you can have certain people whose genius is cooking, not because the skill of cooking makes them special, but because they have an innate sense. So, for instance, my wife. My wife can taste a food and can dissect all the different flavors in it. She knows how to cook, how to add different things. She can think about things and put it together. That's part of her gift. That does not mean that she was meant to be a chef, but it can be expressed through that. And so she loves on her family through her cooking. Like sometimes she'll sit down and say, I apologize, it didn't turn out the way I'm like, this is amazing. What are you talking about? You know? She has a level of genius in that can be expressed through that. We all have a way, but what we do is, because we only value certain things, certain occupations, certain people in certain places, we say, oh, that's not special enough.
Or
that's
certain
not
outcomes.
Or certain outcomes. You can look at, for instance, you can look at a brain surgeon, for instance, right? And you can say that person is gifted, but they're not gifted because they are a brain surgeon. They express their gift through brain surgery. Their talent may be the fact that they have incredible hand-eye coordination, the ability to be able to focus on something for hours at a time, precision, right? But their mind is processing it in a way that allows other people to be able to see it. I have a friend whose son, Ryan Garrett, his son Colin, is a driver. He used to be on the NASCAR circuit. Now he's on the truck series. I forget what it's called. Ultimately, what he wants to do is want to be an F1 driver. And Ryan was talking about his son. He said, well, his ability to be able to process information at a very high speed, right? Which is what it takes to be a driver, because most of us drive, but the faster we drive, the more we panic and slow down. His brain slows the world down so we can process that information, so we can make those adjustments. If you ever watch an F1 car, like going through a turn, they're in and out like that. You got to be able to process that, because anything that happens, you got to be able to see it hundreds of meters down.
Anticipate it.
Right.
In a second. Yeah.
And be able to respond. So that's their genius is expressed through that. Now, it could have been that it was a horseback riding, or they could have been a swordsman, or they could have been any number of other things. But that's the beauty of our gifts, that there are so many different ways that they can be expressed. And the tragedy is that most of us will die without ever having understood that there was something that was special about us, and that we had the capacity to be able to express that, and not only to do it and be passionate about it, but to be able to build a life around it.
And to do it on our own terms.
On your own terms, yeah.
Wow. That's a word right there, man. honestly, I could keep going all day, but we're coming up on 2 hours, so I think this is a great way to end it, man. That's a motivational speech. Next time you're back, we could talk about other stuff, more tactical stuff. So I want to use this platform, to give people the tools to go out there and improve their lives, business, mental health, right? Like hard tools and knowledge to go out there, to do what they need to do to improve their lives. But I think this sets the table in entrepreneurship. I think the first step, if you're going to succeed, you got to find your gift, man. And how can you become that uno, right? That singular entity, right? That no one else can be besides yourself. So that was a great word, man. Sounded like a preacher that took me back to church for real. Great stuff. So I'm gonna say let's leave it there, bro. Next time you come back, we can pick it up and talk some more. But before we go, I want to make sure people can find you wherever you are, online, social media, whatever. Also, if you would like, I would love to have you on the website. For those who aren't familiar with the website, www.sportsinthereal.tv. I want to use this website as like, a resource for people to access experts like yourself and, my other guests, right? Also, when I have the time to actually other resources like books and things like that to help, my followers build up, right? We're not just sports fans. We're actually human beings. And I'm trying to help folks, build a 360 human being, not just, sports fans and people who can talk about sports. So
Yeah.
where can people find you on social media and what resources you have out there to help people? And also talk a little bit more about your business and actually what you guys do and, how people in my audience may be able to leverage your services.
Yeah, man. First of all, thanks for having me. This was a blast. It was great to be able to kind of talk about these things, barbershop talk and sports and business and all those things. So it was really great. I appreciate you having me. Super proud of you for building this platform, and I'm just looking forward to you having more and more success, continue to grow.
Appreciate you, man.
People can find me. I'm on social media I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Frederick Douglass Bussey is my handle.
Everywhere?
Everywhere. Frederick Douglass Bussey. I'm on TikTok. I've got like 4 TikToks on there, but you can follow me there, and eventually I'll post something else. Instagram and Facebook are where I'm the most active. I'm on Threads, too. So just search Frederick Douglass Bussey. You'll find me. As far as I know, I'm the only one. If you want to get a copy of my book, you can also.
Your dad was really like trying to make you like into books, man. He named you like this guy's got to be into books. Like he's got to be something.
Hey, look. It's all on them. I'm trying to make the name mean something because live up to it for sure. The book you can find, Breaking Orbit: Rip Out of the Regular by Unearthing the Power Within. It's on Amazon.com. Easy to find. My name, Frederick Douglass Bussey, Breaking Orbit. I think you'll love it. I've gotten a lot of great reviews on it. A lot of people said it's been transformative for them, and hopefully it will be for you as well. For people who want to work with us. So I run a business advisory firm. We're building the best business advisory firm in the world. Like I said, it's typically for business owners who want to multiply their profits while shrinking the time, the number of hours they're obligated to work every week. So if you're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week and you want to be able to shave that down, we typically can shave 20% off of your hours, in the first 90 days working together. If you've got a team of between 5 and 50, that's our sweet spot. We have some companies to work with that are bigger, rarely solopreneurs, but it depends. If you feel like you're someone who wants to build a category of one business, you want to be able to build generational wealth through your business. So it's not just people who want a side hustle, people who just want to make a couple $100,000 a year. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not where we are able to get the best results for our clients. So if you are someone who really wants to be able to multiply your profits, right? 2x, 5x, 10x your profits, then those are ideally people that we can help and support in the best way. And we're looking to build long-term relationships. So it's not a fly-by-night, hit and run sort of situation. We're not out to just get your money and move on. We really want to build long-term relationships. Typically, our clients tend to work with us on an average about 4.5 years. And so if that sounds like something that you would like to be a part of, then let's explore whether it's a good fit or not. You can send me a message on any of these platforms, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Feel free to reach out. And I'm always checking my DMs, and I'm always open to meeting new people and supporting them. I also have a free Facebook group, 7-Figure Circle $1 Million Mastermind. So we've got a ton of resources in there. We've got master classes, trainings, other resources and things of that nature that can be able to support you if you're not quite at that 7-figure level, or if you're just getting started on your journey, wherever you are. We've got a ton of different resources that we offer to people, and it's completely free. You can go there, 7-Figure Circle, $1 Million Mastermind. If you can't find it when you search it, just go to my page, and there's a link there underneath that you can join from there. And that's it.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, man, because not all of us are balling out of control just yet.
And I recognize that, right? And so the thing is, again, it's about long-term relationships. I want everyone to win. It's just that where we are right now, we've specialized in working with a select group of clientele.
No, that's your niche. That's
where we are.
Totally fair.
But I definitely want to support, and there's so many resources that are out there. I think we want to give people the right information, so you can be a part of a community. There's a lot of other entrepreneurs that are there, so you can connect with them as well, and be able to kind of get poured into in terms of the things that you want to build for your own life. It's a trajectory, right? So not everybody gets there right away. Hardly anybody does. And so there's no hurry, there's no rush. You need that support. You can join the community. I'm always posting things. There's always videos and things like that. My podcasts are hosted there as well. So if you want to be able to support that, on the YouTube channel. So I have Icon Status is my YouTube channel. And we've got the Boss Podcast. I actually have 3 podcasts. So Boss Podcast, Power Lunch Podcast, and Breaking Orbit Podcast. So they're all talking about different aspects of business or personal development from a different perspective, and be able to support people. So there's a ton of resources that people can get for free. Just want to learn more about me. Just want to be able to expand your knowledge about business and entrepreneurship. That's a great way to be able to do it. And if you want to go deeper, you want some support on this lonely path of entrepreneurship, then we're here to support you as well. And we love to have a conversation to see if it's a fit to be able to support you in doing whatever it is that you want to do. Whatever your why is, it's possible.
Yeah, that's dope. That's what's up, man. Listen, I appreciate you again. Like I said, man, COVID kind of separated us, right? Yeah. Physically separated us. But it's always good catching up with you because your words of wisdom, legit, I take them to heart, seriously. And I like for other people to hear what you say as well, because I feel like you have a gift in that. And speaking to people and helping people getting, to get the best out of their situation, out of themselves. So we're going to leave it here, y'all. 2 hours long. This is a record. We went long.
What's crazy about this is exactly how we used to be after church.
All the time. Like just talking away, man.
Church would end, and then it would be 4 or 5 of us. 4 or 5
people just yapping away, man. That's crazy. Times have changed, man. But this was good. Appreciate you, Fred. Anytime you want to come back, as often as you would like, you're welcome to come back. And if you're out there, watch, listen, share, visit the website, hit up Fred. Need guidance or whatever it is, man. I'm sure he'll be willing to help you out in any way he can. But appreciate y'all tuning in, listening for 2 hours. I'm gonna catch you guys next time though. Mike, Fred Bussey, Sports and the Real. Be good, y'all.
I'm going straight to the top. Just put the stack on the clock. I am Ray Allen's a shot. I'm going straight to the top.